Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. So excuse the noise of the rain on the roof, but we've had such a dry summer that is most welcome. We seem to be getting a bit of it lately, though, you know. This is a quick video, and I wanted to get a better example than this, but without moving loads and loads of plants, this one we'll have to do. It's about brown staining on your roots. Now, if you haven't got any, go away and watch another video because this won't matter, but you might get them in the future. Now, I've had this plant a long time. This is a recent division, so it's been recently repotted, and as a consequence of the repot you can see the new growth. It's obvious, you know, that's a root extension there. Yeah, so since it was repotted it's done that. You know, it's done that. It's branching here, some are burying down in there, there's one creeping around the edge of the pot. But on the larger, chunkier roots, you don't tend to get it on the finer root plants. You can get brown marks. Now, these are normally as a consequence of using fertilizers. Doesn't matter which one, really. It's the consequence of fertilizer on the roots that dries incredibly fast before the root itself can actually absorb it. So if you can imagine, you've got your chemicals in your fertilizer and suddenly the water's all gone. You know, it's either evaporated off the root or been soaked into it, along with hopefully some of the nutrients. That's the idea. But if there's a concentration of fertilizer left on the velamen, on the surface of the root, it will burn it. It is a form of chemical burn. It doesn't destroy the root. It will stop that bit of the root working quite as well as it should do. But that's the extent of the damage. Obviously, if you're getting brown stains all over your roots and there's hardly any white left, something's going wrong. And the something will normally be a fertilizer concentration that is just far too high for that type of plant, and or the roots are just drying fast. And a lot of the time it's where the roots didn't really get properly hydrated properly. You know, so they didn't get their velamen to turn that nice dark green. That's like a saturation point. It can hold no more moisture. So anything else you give it at that point just runs off. There is a limit to how much the roots can hold. And if it reaches that limit, I do believe that the plant manages fine. And you don't tend to get root burns. I've noticed it more, you know, where I was perhaps watering in a hurry, you know, where there's a lot of heat and bright light, and I didn't get the roots wet enough, basically. It's the sort of thing that may happen more with a sprayer, perhaps. But yeah, these brown marks, I mean, I've had this plant a long time, although this is a recent division, so the chances are every root on this plant is one of mine, historically. You know, you can even get a root, you know, like this, a really old one that a lot of people would have cut off because it's dead. Well, it's branching, so it's not dead. All you've got to do is feel them. Don't look at them, feel them. Squishy, mushy, off it comes. If it feels firm, don't worry about the colour. They can still shoot out. But those brown stains, they are avoidable, and there is a way. It's just a faff. Then the idea is that you water your plants with your fertiliser, and then you wash the roots. As I said, it's a faff because there's time involved and it needs 2 visits. And you allow the roots to start to dry, but not get completely dry. And then you flush the roots. So you've washed off any excess fertiliser on those roots, leaving water. They can't burn. The original watering with the fertiliser, the velamen will have taken in an amount of that, maybe not all of it, there may be still some on the surface, but it will have had its nutrients. It's the bit that's left on the roots when they dry fast that's the problem. And obviously, you know, the more air movement you've got, the warmer it is, the faster they're going to dry. So another way of not avoiding it, but keeping it down to, you know, next to nothing, is just don't use strong fertiliser. feed more often with less. It amounts to the same thing. I mean, that's really how the plant would get fed in the wild. It gets a little bit when it rains, you know. If it rains every day, it gets a little bit every day. It's not a big deal. You know, in nature, it doesn't rain every day of the week, but the feed only comes down on Sunday because that's when you're not at work. You know, that's not how it works. They get a little often. And I think replicating that is better than lots of plain water and good hydration, followed by quite a strong dose of fertiliser, especially when the roots are going to dry fast. So just a quick word on the brown marks on the roots. It is a chemical burn, and you know, there are various reasons why it can happen. There are ways to avoid it, and keep the fertiliser levels low and perhaps up the frequency is one of the ways. And the other way is to water and feed at your normal levels, and then as the roots start to dry a bit, flush them and wash that excess fertiliser off. But that's a faff because you've visited the orchid twice. I'm certainly not doing that. I was desperately looking round here to find an example, and it suddenly dawned on me, all the big fleshy roots, the ones I wanted to get at, like the Vandas and that, they're actually okay. I can't find any examples. I could have found a few last year for reasons of, you know, those who follow me know exactly what I mean. But yeah, the root growth this year seems to be pretty clean. You know, if you think my Vandas get dunked in a bucket, they get fed at quite a high level compared with the other orchids. You know, I mean, I start out with a TDS reading of like 350 to 400. And then obviously as I water the plants each day, the level of the water goes down in the bucket. So I top it up with pure water. So gradually, after I change the water, it gets weaker. Until eventually it comes round to change the water completely again. And at that point, my Vandas get one watering in pure water and a slosh around to give the roots a rinse off, just in case there's any build-up. But I don't think there is. But yeah, any roots can have this. It doesn't have to be the big, thick, chunky roots, but it does tend to be that way. Yeah, I mean, that there's one root there that's a bit brown, but I think that's just because it's older. So I didn't find the best of examples, but I'm not digging around in all the plants. It's the words that are more important. And those of you who've been growing orchids a while, you will have seen a brown mark on a root. But it will be a form of chemical burn, and there are ways to avoid it. And if there's only a few little brown marks on an extensive root system, it does no harm. The root still works. As long as it's got more of that white colour than the brown colour, it can still function. Just not quite as well as if it was all nice and white and goes nice and green when you water it. Okay, just a quick one. Thanks for that. See you next time.